Welcome to Vital Outdoors TV. I'm Trevor, and today I'm going to be showing you how you can catch bass during many different times of the year. I'm going to show you pre-spawn, spawn, right before winter, and just in the middle of summer, how you can catch bass, big ones and small ones, all year round on different presentations. So stay tuned for some good videos. Spring's a great time to catch largemouth bass. There are a lot of them, and they're getting ready to spawn or even have started to spawn. So they're easy and fun to catch. They're really aggressive, so you got to use strong line and rods. You want to use a medium heavy rod with anywhere between 10 to 15 pound line. If you're going to use braided line, you can get down to 10, but if you're going to use mono line, you should use 15 pound test to make sure you can catch them when they're all active to protect their bed. So, there's two parts of spring. There's the pre-spawn and there's the spawn. During the pre-spawn, this is going to happen in 55 to 60 degree water. They're going to be less cautious eaters. They're going to be eating whatever swims by them, whatever they can find. But mostly, around this time, they're going to be feeding on crawfish. Now, you can use a jig or a Texas rig craw to catch them. You're going to want to use bigger baits for the females rather than little tiny 1/8 ounce jigs. So, what you're going to want to do is find water that's roughly 15 feet of water, anywhere, give or take a couple feet, but they're going to be moving in from like 30 feet of water into the 15-foot range to start looking at areas they want to spawn in. They'll get up to the 10-foot area too to help anywhere they can find stumps and rocks. That's where they're mainly going to be. They're going to be looking for those two things where they can put in a bed and have a safe spot to lay their eggs. So, for the spawn, it's a whole different game. They're going to be in a little shallower water, around the 10-foot range, but they're going to be on those beds. They're not going to move much. They're not going to go far for food at all. And if something goes across their bed, they're going to eat it. So you can, for this, use a crawfish or even crankbaits that will look like a bluegill or something that's looking for eggs to steal. Trout too. If you have trout in your lake that you're fishing for bass on the spawn, that's a great way to catch bass. Using a big Huddleston, you can catch the monster females because it looks like a trout that's eating their eggs, which is a thing that naturally happens in the wild, in the waters. So they're still going to be aggressive. You're going to want to use the heavy line, but other than the craws and the crankbaits, you can start getting into using worms. They won't hit it as much as a minnow type bait or a crawfish, but worms are starting to come out at that time and they start to hit on them pretty good. For worms, you can usually tell if they're going to be good because when it starts to rain, the worms will come out. When you see worms on the sidewalk or in the road, you know the worms are getting flushed down into the waters and they're ready to, the bass are going to be hitting on them. So you know you can go out there and start using worm presentations to catch more fish. Another great time to catch largemouth is during summer. I like summer a lot because they'll hit practically anything you throw at them. You can use jigs, you can use worms, you can use crankbaits, they'll hit it all. But during this period, fish aren't really moving much. They'll move to feed, but mostly they won't be going from 50 foot of water to 2 foot of water for spawning or anything. There's no way really to pattern them. They're just random. So one way to find them is go along channels. That's where they'll primarily swim. When they're going from their bedding spot to where they feed, they'll follow the break lines and channels looking for different ways to get up to shallower water. They'll sit in like 15 foot of water to when they're waiting. When they're not feeding, they're just resting. They'll sit out deep. But when they come up to feed, they'll move a little shallower. They'll come up to 8 feet of water, or anywhere around there. Anywhere you can find weed lines where they're looking for little bluegills and little panfish to feed on. They're going to be sitting in a little structure and stuff. But other than that, you can sometimes throw out crankbaits out the back of your boat and see if you can catch any that are sitting out in deeper water, just resting. They'll still feed, but not as much as the ones that are going to be in the shallower water. So when you're fishing for them, you're going to want to be mostly targeting the 8-foot range. And for baits, you're going to want to use things such as drop shotting with leech presentations or minnows. And by this time, worms are hitting good too. So bass will mainly hit anything during this time, but my favorite things to use are wacky rigged worms, jerk baits, and drop shotted leeches or minnows. So they're going to be along the break-offs to move, and they're pretty easy to pattern during the summer. You can find them almost anywhere. I know a lot of guys will go fish docks and stuff too. They're there, but they'll typically be a little bit deeper unless it's just after the spawn. They'll be anywhere, but if you want to catch the most, the 8-foot range is usually a good way to fish. In fall, largemouth bass are really fun to catch. As the days get shorter and the water starts cooling, they get ready to pack on weight for winter, and you can catch them really easily. They'll be hitting on anything that represents a shad, because the shad that are born in the summer and spring are already bait-sized fish for largemouth by now. So you can go fish with Alabama rigs, jerk baits, and crankbaits and have a lot of success, because those are some big fish that the bass are going to feed on as they want to pack on weight for winter. You can follow contour lines that usually help you find the fish. If you have a fish finder with side imaging, you can usually find bait balls to your sides and cast right over them with a crankbait or Alabama rig, and you can get right through the middle and get a big bass. Bass will usually be feeding in roughly 8 foot of water down to 12 feet. They'll be working a little deeper, but if you can find break-offs too, that's a great place to find the bass. So during fall, most thing you want to remember is shad representation, because if you're fishing a river or a lake with shad, that's going to be the main thing they're feeding on. They're not going to want worms or craws at this point of the year. So those are the things you're going to want to use the most. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button below and like our videos. Tell us what you want to see more videos of, and we'll try our best to get those done for you. Thanks for watching.